Hey, Hana, want to play Hungry Hungry Hippos?
No.
What about Hot Wheels?
Nope.
What about those big balls with like the little cow udders on top that you bounce around on?
No. No.
You want to get on the trampoline I just bought?
Yes, because I did want to break my arm today. So that'd be great.
That's excellent because this week on OK So Hear Me Out, we're talking about children's toys.
Hi, everybody. I am Hannah LaFleur,
And I am Aubrey Massey.
and this is Okay, So Hear Me Out.
OK So Hear Me Out is an imagination exploratorium where Han and I grab a different subject every week and we try to improve it or the world with that idea. And this week we are talking about children's toys.
Yay!
Actually, really important to both of us because we are both educators and so we understand the science about the importance of children's play. And so I wanted to start out this week with actually giving you some knowledge about why this is important and kind of the mindset that we are approaching this in.
All right, Mr. Massey, give it to us.
Right. Okay. So we have some we have some learning theories that I just wanted to cover real fast. The first one is the social development theory, which was created by Lev Vygotsky back in the day. I didn't do a lot of research. I'm just pulling things out of my brain from educational psychology from college. But the point of Lev Vygotsky's social development theory is that children learn from interacting with each other in a form of role play. You know, growing up, you guys pretend to play house or doctor or I don't know, banker, whatever it is. But through this act of role play, children learn how to become adults, and it's one of the main ways we learn. So Albert Bandura created this theory called the social learning theory. And one of the ways it was tested, just so you understand what it was, is that there's this huge rise in STDs in Latin America in the early 1960s. Now, due to this theory, what television networks did in these countries of Latin America is they started taking all of their novellas and the episodes that they would create in the following months would be about sex education. The people on the novellas would make decisions that were better according to scientifically proven sex education. Like they would start using condoms and people would have conversations about how you should use condoms and the importance of birth control and all of these things. And these characters would act these situations out. And as these episodes aired, over the following months and years, they saw an incredible decline in STDs and unwanted pregnancies. And so abortion rates went down and STD rates went down. And it was because these novellas, these popular TV programs that everybody watched, discussed these issues. So it's proven that children and young people will watch adults work out their problems, and even adults will watch other adults work out these problems. And since they have good examples of them, they are more likely to follow through with them. It is why activism is so important. And it's just a lot of important things, but that's the way we learn, is just by watching other people. You mix that with the social development theory of Lev Vygotsky, and it basically boils down to play is the most important way that children learn. When they play, children learn. And it's wired into our brains. We see this when we study hunter-gatherer groups of people that still exist in the world. There's no schools in these societies, and yet children continually learn how to become new adults, and they do that through the power of play. In fact, there have been several observations of hunter-gatherer children's creating smaller cities away from the actual villages And then they go over there, just children themselves, and they role play everything that they saw that day in the adult village. And through that, these children grow up to become a part of the society, and it's a never-ending cycle. But there's no schools, and the adults never teach the children how to do things unless they ask. And it's incredible. So there are a lot of ways that it affects society, and we just kind of want to go through, I guess, some examples now of how that works in today's society.
Yeah, so let's start with dolls. Playing with dolls when we were kids. This can be educational in the way that, like, when we play with dolls, we are role playing, essentially. But I feel more hesitation to ever want to give kids dolls. And, like, I didn't like them when I was a kid either. I hate dolls. Like, I don't know. I just hate them. Because, I mean, they have unrealistic body standards. And that's something, like, I mean, that's kind of a buzzword these days. But even as a kid, like, I didn't like that. There's definitely a lack of diversity. And I think they're doing a better job of that now than they did when Aubrey and I were kids, which was years and years ago. Which is something that old people say all the time. We're, like, 90s kids, basically. So it wasn't actually that long. But, I mean, yeah, when we were growing up, I mean, if there was any brown doll, it might have just been one, and they were probably a little bit stereotyped. I think an improvement as far as, like, role-playing games, which you can, because, like, that's one nice thing about dolls, but I think costumes are way better for kids. So, like, just having a huge costume box, and you get to put on whatever you want, and you get to be yourself when you're being whatever character you want. I mean, you're not changing your body, you're not getting this weird idea of how you should look. You just get to role play, and costumes are just fun. You get to look different.
In addition to teaching role play with children, which is a good and positive thing, there are also ills that kids can learn from things like dolls. Another example of that kind of thing would be like Legos and clays, Play-Dohs, things like that. Anything that you would build with. They are positive in the ways that they teach children spatial reasoning and how to construct things and creativity and a lot of good things, but they tend to be very one-sided in the gender spectrum. These toys are almost always geared towards young boys instead of young girls. And so this is how we start to get this divide and this thought process that, well, boys are more inclined to be engineers and be math people and things like that, and girls need to stay in the kitchen because they play with dolls. And this gender duality is very harmful, and we teach it through children's play. That's how we do that, and things like that need to change.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been in the children's section of a Walmart in a while, but I remember the last time I was, probably a few years ago. It was just like crazy to me, the disparity between the boys' toys and the girls' toys. I mean, it was still overwhelmingly the girls' toys are all pink. Like, at least the packaging is just all pink and purple. Maybe light blue, but like light blue, you know? And, that's just the packaging. And then it's just so much about, being a caring person, caring for things, little animals, which is great, but then you look into the boys section and it's just so much more about learning and being a scientist, which is something I wish, that shouldn't be gender specific. That should go both ways, for sure.
Right. We've already talked about how we played as children was a lot different than how children play now. And I think that really comes down to how much we were outside as kids, and that a lot of things that we had were geared for us to go outside and do those things. Like, I had a trampoline in my backyard that I spent most of my time outside of school with. And things like ripsticks became very popular, and skateboards and all of those. I don't know why I said ripsticks before I said skateboards, but I just remember being really excited about a ripstick back then.
Yeah.
And it encouraged us to go outside, but with this rise of technology and video games and phones are basically supercomputers all the time now, kids are more inclined to stay inside. Even I am more inclined to stay inside as an adult just because I can do anything from my laptop. and it changes the way we think. Like, we have a rise in child obesity because children move less now. And then also at the same time, now, okay, so don't get me wrong, I love a violent video game. I really do. But board games force you to interact with people in person, right? And video games, you don't have to actually talk to people. And now with the way video games are, they are violent, and it is not the only reason why children grow up to be more, or our society is more violent or anything like that, but there's actual scientific proof that I've already kind of explained to you, that I've touched on, that violent video games create more violent children because it teaches children that violence is an answer to a solution when it's not. And when little kids play these games like Call of Duty, and the goal is to shoot up the other person, and you're not near anybody, so you feel brave enough to just trash talk and say terrible things about each other's mothers and sisters and other gross sexist, all kinds of terrible racist comments, all these things, like, and it's bad. It's bad, folks. And we allow that to permeate in our children and the way they play games.
So to bring the anger from Aubrey down a little bit, let me just tell you how some stuff that I used to do when I was a kid. I used to just get little sticks, and my backyard had a ton of trees. Like, I've counted, and there were more trees in our backyard than in any other house in Acadia Woods, which was built on what used to be Acadia Swamp. And so it used to be a swamp. We had a sugarcane field on the back of our property. But anyway, the house had a lot of trees, and I used to go hunt for frogs and toads inside of the trees. So I just walked around with a stick and poked holes, waiting for things to jump out. And that's why I am that way I am today.
So this is kind of where we're coming from in this episode, is that we know the science about how play is important, and so basically everything we're going to come up with will be about how to teach children good things, or to teach them to be more successful in life while having fun, while trying to avoid as much negative learning through play that we can.
Okay. Can I start us out?
No, please start us out. I've talked more than enough.
Okay. So, we've already talked about role-playing games for kids. Just picture this. There's like a whole RPG park for kids, or even better, just like LARP parks for children. Like, maybe you walk into a place, like, it looks like laser tag from the outside, but you walk into a place, and then there's a whole bunch of costumes behind the counter. Let's just say, for the sake of this, they're all clean, like that, because we don't want to create a gross situation. Bunch of clean costumes, and they're like, "All right, what would you like to be? What would you like to be today, Christina?" And you're like, I think I will be that witch costume. So they hand you a witch costume, and you go into the park, and you're a witch, and you've got to role play amongst all the other characters there. Maybe they set up scenarios, or maybe they're like, "All right, we're going to pair you up with this party over here because they have a warlock and a toad and a princess in distress," or, like
and a police officer.
Let's
not have princess in distress.
Yeah, well, but sometimes you want to role play as that is the point. I mean, not saying.
Oh, okay.
You're right. I mean, it's a character is the point. You could be a princess that's a hero. You could whatever. And like no gender norms, as in the little boy wants to be the princess, give him the princess outfit. That's fine. Everything is available and open for you.
Well, I think it hits the whole role-playing, helps them do things, but I think I like the idea of scenarios to help kids work out problems, and I think that if you added a lot more real-world things, then this would become more accessible to the real world, like adding firefighters and a mayor and
yeah. Oh, what if this
a
park...
teacher and a doctor?
Yeah, what if this park has, like, separate rooms, or maybe it's, like, an all-outside park, too. So it's, like, a separate, go walk down that sidewalk. And, like, yeah, there's buildings that are like office spaces, or you walk into the swamp, or you walk into the movie theater, you know, like or like a Hollywood stage or whatever. So there's different environments too that you're dealing with, and you might be a firefighter that walks into the Wizard of Oz. Like those could also create different scenarios.
Right. I think that's great. In other sections for them to practice maybe adult skills, like have an actual grocery store in there where kids can do that. I think that we should take this LARP park and apply it to real world situations. Like how I said, the hunter-gatherer societies, like there are lots of instances where children create small villages away from the actual adult village and then work out their day. And I think it should be set up in, you enter and you're just a kid, and there's a ton of different rooms, and one of them is like a grocery store, and within this grocery store there are a few adults in there, and they just go through the motions over and over and over again of grocery shopping and buying healthy foods and comparing prices and doing all of these very important things, but they don't talk to the kids. There's nobody in there that goes, hello, welcome to the grocery store.
Yeah.
This is how you buy groceries. Because you want them to watch and act it out so that it goes into their brain and becomes a part of who they are. So a bunch of adults are just grocery shopping, and then the kids will start to pick up on how to grocery shop. And they'll start comparing prices, and if they ask questions, then the adults can answer. But other than that, the kids are just ignored until they pick up on the behaviors themselves.
Yeah, I love that idea because, like, especially with the grocery stores, I mean, you can teach them how to make healthy decisions. You can teach them how to, like, compare prices. And that's a great tool. I mean, it's frustrating being with adults who don't know how to grocery shop without going crazy, or they want to buy everything, you know? So, like, or being away from home for the first time and grocery shopping for yourself, you know, that's a different feeling. But if we could start doing that stuff as kids, that'd be super fun. And you could actually, like, buy stuff, right?
Yeah, and you would actually buy
Yes.
real things with probably real money, and your parents would hand you money before these kids walked in, and then maybe you go to the next room over and there's a person cooking, like
That'd be beautiful.
teaching. And then, I mean, it's not really a cooking class, but they go through the motion of cooking a meal over and over again.
Right.
And then the kids walk in and they would just copy it until they figured out, oh, salt makes food taste good.
Yeah.
Don't touch the oven, it's hot. And there's some extra supervision to make sure kids don't murder each other. And there's probably, and you make meals that don't require, you know,
vigorous
knives,
whisking.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Anything like that. But they learn.
Aubrey and I had an adventure in pasta making the other night where vigorous whisking was required. I didn't realize what vigorous whisking and the instructions really meant, like your arm needs to be fucking sore after you do it. So thank goodness Aubrey saved the day because my whisking was not vigorous enough. I was whisking with mediocrity. And anyway, yes.
So you learn how to vigorously whisk cheese sauce or whatever. It doesn't matter, but you're making things. And then maybe the next room over, you're building something. There are adults building, I don't know, a birdhouse. Something, and the kids just go through the motions and learn to use basic tools. And then the next room over maybe is a gardening place.
Oh my gosh.
And then the kids learn how to garden and plant things, and you learn the importance of trees. Whatever.
So, like, I want more games that we're teaching for kids. We're teaching kids how to take care of the environment. So, like, I 100% agree. We need some gardening stuff. But, like, even, outside of a LARP park, we can have more games or activities, I guess would be a better word, where it's, like, easy gardening for kids. Like, you know how easy, like, Chia Pets were? You just sprinkle the stuff on and it kind of grew, but it was also kind of shitty. it would be cool if we had some easy gardening stuff for kids, so they learned how, like, when I say easy, I mean like it's not like you plant something and it's gonna die, like how most gardening is, which it makes you feel like shit afterwards. Actual gardening is very difficult and very time consuming, but like it yields results that kids can see, so that they are going around and they're planting flowers. Like, picture some kind of urban city, and kids are going around with these little bags of seeds, and they're planting things anywhere they see a little patch of grass. And just imagine how much greener. Maybe there'd be some like more flowers and more weeds, which I'm okay with. Just like covering the city. That'd be beautiful.
Ooh, and this place could teach recycling. Like, there's just a room where somebody's taking trash and things
and
that need to be recycled and
yeah.
putting them in separate bins,
Right.
and then maybe using a compost bin or things like that. Just all of these different things where they just teach it. And maybe something that teaches science, a room that teaches science experiments. I don't really know exactly how that would work, but they do something.
Well, that room could teach the scientific method. They ask a question, then they do their research, then they form their hypothesis, and then they test the hypothesis, and then they analyze the results, and then they share their conclusions with their colleagues. I'm pretty sure you have to learn the scientific method 15 times before you graduate college, even if you're a music education major. Just the amount of times we've had to do that. But yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think we call this place New School, and then the tagline is called Watch and Learn.
Hey, okay, speaking of new school, how about we quit our normal teaching jobs and go teach at new school? Quote unquote teach. We play around.
I'm down with it.
Yeah, we play around at new school.
I like it.
Yeah.
And maybe there are different levels to this new school. The first floor is for kids through a certain age range, kind of.
They're not good at climbing stairs yet, so that age.
Right. And then the next level is something for a little bit older, and then the next floor is something a little bit older than that. It has 4 floors.
Yeah.
The top floor is for high school kids, aged kids, and older.
It's basically
and
an interning.
What that is, and then their job is to be people in the lower 3 floors. And so they when these children go through enough of this play palace or whatever, and they get to the top floor through their, quote unquote graduation, all of a sudden it's like, hey, now you get to help us teach these kids all of these things that you have learned. And so now you've got free employees.
Right. Man, speaking of doing things like interning like that, just the amount that you learn when we student taught band, as opposed to like when we had to go through 4 years of learning how to do band. You know what I mean? Like, you learn so much when you're student teaching. I just feel like,
because you're actually doing it, which
right.
is the whole point of what we're saying right now. It's just always so true, and it's like our public education system is garbage because we didn't listen to anything we know about learning.
Well, like, what we did learn in school is how to survive, as in how to memorize super fast for a test. I am very good at memorizing things really fast and then splashing it out on a test and then forgetting all about it. It's a skill that I don't use so much anymore unless I have to memorize something again. But I did learn that in school.
I have another building that's separate from LARPing that I want to pitch. It's basically escape room. I'm sorry. It needs to be separate because I just don't think it fits into like a role play, copy, watch and learn kind of thing.
Right.
I want to create escape rooms for younger people in order to teach problem solving and puzzles and things like that. And maybe this could be a part of it, but the problem is this is something that children need to figure out on their own and not just copy behavior. So like puzzles could be as easy as up on the wall there's a 1, 2, 3, a blank, and then a 5. and in a bin and somewhere else in that room is just a bunch of letters, and once they put the 4 up there, then something dings. I don't know. And they realize that they were
Yeah.
right. And they're just kind of solving these simple math puzzles and then maybe a literal puzzle. I don't know. Just basic problem solving skills. And they're geared towards younger people, and it's more similar, and it's just fun for them. And there's different rooms for different age ranges.
Yeah.
And
I love that. Hey, if anyone listening is like a business person and knows how to start small businesses, let us know so that we can quit our jobs.
right, because we really want to do this for
Yeah.
no.
Hey, can I go? Can I?
That was my extra thing. It's your turn.
Okay, can I go back to more environmentally informative games? So I brought up like
Yes.
easy gardening stuff. So our bees are dying, and we have, you know, like how kids paint birdhouses. What if we have like bee houses? And I know that's not the right word for a house of bees. Hives, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But like ways for kids to set up an environment or a little ecosystem that bees would love, so that we can have we could try to bring up our bee population. And that goes along with the gardening thing, because obviously bees like flowers.
I like that. I think you could have my first little bee set, and you can
Cute.
you
My
have just
first
a
bee
little
set.
hive, and you learn to put the sugar water in it, and you get a little, beekeeper outfit to make sure you don't get stung.
Oh my
And
gosh, and you can name
things
your
like that.
bees, and then there's a million, and
Yeah,
you
you could-
call them all Sandra. Anyway.
You can name all of your bees.
Okay, along with being outside, something that my sister and I, some of you might have heard her. Her name is Tessa. Anyway, something that we loved to do when we were kids, which was, yes, dorky, but I mean, aren't we all dorks? We're listening to a podcast or making a podcast. So this is a safe place for dorks. We used to build fairy houses in the backyard. So I've already mentioned how our backyard at our dad's house just had like a ton of trees. And with trees come sticks and mud and little flowers and little animals and acorns and sweet gum balls, which are, unless you have sweet gum trees, you probably don't know what a sweet gum ball is, but it's this little ball. Anyway, so we used to like build little huts for very small fairies to live in, but it was so much fun. And I just feel like I wish I could give every kid the experience of having these little tools and building small houses for small things like fairies or gnomes or trolls or frogs or ladybugs, whatever they want. It's like Legos, but more earthy, less plastic.
All toys should be made to be biodegradable because after they're used, they get thrown away, and they rarely get donated because they tend to be worn out because kids play with them, right? So then they get thrown away, then they end up in a landfill. So maybe all toys should be biodegradable, and you should just put them in a compost bin when your children's done with their Hot Wheels. And then, ta-da, now the earth is better.
I don't even think you even have to say stuff like toys should be less plastic, just because all those plastic toys I remember being around when we were kids, like they all sucked anyway, like moon shoes and all those other just awkward, loud plastic things, like those huge toy trucks. Like, what is the point? Like, I mean, you know what's better and more biodegradable anyway? I mean, it would help if you recycle it, but stuff like coloring books. At least it's paper, which, yeah, you can do something with. Okay, coloring books. Let's talk about coloring books.
I did want to talk about coloring books.
So coloring books are awesome because they teach you creativity, but I hate the coloring books, which most people think of, where you already have a picture and all you do is color in between the lines. That is boring, And I hated doing that as a kid because I didn't have the patience to do something perfect and color in the lines anyway. And also, you're not creating you're not using your imagination is the biggest thing. I mean, you're picking colors, but you're not really using your imagination. All these coloring books should just be completely blank. I mean, they're all sketchbooks essentially. And I mean, yeah, crayons are fine. Whatever. Markers, crayons, color pencils. I don't have a problem with any of those, except personally, I think crayons are very difficult. But anyway, yeah, like drawing with crayon sucks. But coloring books should be completely blank, or maybe they have prompts like draw something that makes you happy. Draw something that you want to eat. Or, like...
Yeah.
Yeah. And that way you're actually, like, teaching the skill of looking at something and copying it down. I mean, that's a spatial awareness skill. But, I mean, that's stuff that we take for granted sometimes, or, like, we think some kids just have it. Like, no, some kids are talented, but, like, the reason I'm good at drawing today is because I drew and doodled for years. Like, that's just what I did on all my papers. So you figure out things that look good. You figure out how to get better at it. I think we could have more of that for kids in a way that's, like, more popular, less regimented with all the lines, and it's like a teddy bear. Color the teddy bear. Like, that's boring. Make something exciting. Draw a battle scene. Or, even better, a gardening scene. Still love sharp, pointy objects.
I mean, I like those prompts. It's like, I don't know, one of the best things about schools, at least like English class, is like journaling. Like when you get to write about whatever you want. Of course, it was really hard for me because I never felt that creative. But I like that. But I think that drawing things is way better.
What makes drawing a little bit different than journaling is, like, even as an adult, like, it's easier for me to draw something and kind of get out feelings than it is to really confront words. Like, putting things into words is sometimes hard. Journaling's great. I'm not saying that's not good. But, like, drawing is, like, you can still put a feeling into a drawing without being explicit. Like, I can draw a donkey that's just kind of looking sad without having to put into words, I'm feeling very depressed today. Like,
right.
You don't have to confront those feelings as hard, which is, I think, sometimes good. Maybe not always, but sometimes good.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have to talk about children's toys and children's play and improving that side of education. We're going to get to our final ideas here in just a second, but we want to let you know that you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Okay So Hear Me Out. We have a Facebook page, which is just Okay So Hear Me Out. We hope you've enjoyed the second episode of Season 2, and we truly appreciate the fact that you are listening to us. If you enjoy this new season of Okay So Hear Me Out, you should tell a friend, because, well, that's the only way we're ever going to get the word out about this podcast. Tell a friend. Maybe go onto iTunes or whatever podcast app that you listen to podcasts with and leave us a review with some good words and hopefully, a thumbs up or some stars or whatever it is their rating system is. That is it. Hannah, are you ready for your last idea? Because I'm not.
All right. So I would like some endangered animal Beanie Babies, or something that's like a Beanie Babies, where when you buy this cute little furry plushie, all of the proceeds go to fund the conservation of that animal. Maybe they even come with like a little booklet that says all about the species that you're helping to protect. I think it's just super cute.
So when I was growing up, there's this traveling trailer that taught fire safety and you crawled through it and things like that in order to role play how to act when there's a fire going on. My idea is to take that, but then on the side of the trailer it says, "Don't be a racist." And they go into rural communities and teach white people how not to be racist.
That is beautiful.
Anyways, I'm Aubrey Massey.
And I am Hannah LaFleur.
And this was Okay So Hear Me Out.
Bye.